let's play. Boy, oh boy, do I hope that my project will open. I guess it'll work? Alright, great. I haven't done anything like this before. Hi, you're on Ergonomically. I'm someone. And, I'm gonna try something. Just because I like talking about my own work. It has nothing to do with narcissism. I just like explaining myself, especially since no one seems to get stuff immediately. However, this is not in that example because I kind of lost my, intent with the short film, with the short little 15-second thing. So I just kind of stopped caring about whether it made sense or not. It was just conveying a simple concept. A very simple, like, moment. Or a very simple, like, feeling of resentment that happens in Lucy's dollhouse. Of course, we have not gotten to this yet. We're going to. In about maybe, like, 50 episodes or so. But we'll get there. We'll get there. So yeah, this is Exorcise Me. Something short that I wanted to do to practice After Effects. And I didn't end up finishing it until, like, I was like, oh, I can finish this within 3 days. And then 3 days became, like, 4 months. So I left this alone for, like, several months. And then I only recently came back to it to try to finish it. So, roll the entire clip. It's only 15 seconds. Play the animation here. Okay, now you've seen it. So I'm just gonna go through and talk about both what the happening symbolically and just what I actually did. So this girl isn't really gonna render. Something that I tried to do was masks, because I find those very hard. I think this is a sub-comp. It is. Okay. What I think is happening here, yeah. So this is a mask. It's alpha inverted. I use the track mat. That's just, there's several ways that you can do masks in After Effects. The way that I do it is with toggle switches and modes. So you're probably going to see this first. This is also where you get motion blurs. So then you can switch to this. And then this is where you'll get the track mat. So for this I have alpha inverted map, which means that this takes from the layer above it. So this is a rectangle that's shrinking, I believe. Yes, this is a rectangle of the background color that's shrinking. And I think I did, the reason I had the alpha inverted mask was so that it could only remain in the confines of this. And I just kind of did that over. And then for the second one, it was this shrinking. And then that again. Just so it all stays in the same thing. And then this goes over twice. Whoops. Shit. Where are you? Where are you? Ah! Nothing went wrong. I'm not dumb. You're dumb. So the bag. That's happening. I was gonna do something with the text too, I think? Did the text end up moving? There's so much. This is only 15 seconds. Oh, what a nightmare. Okay, so this, did I do anything to this? I think I made it like, okay, I did make it move up like ever so slightly, but oh no, it's moving down a little bit. So Counter's mad. And Lucy's like, hello? I like the colors for this. I still kind of am a little bit, but I'm really into like the blue and orange scheme look. I really like that, especially for like orange lips. I didn't do that here, which is kind of lame. Lucy has braces, because I have braces, so yeah. Bullshit liar, bullshit liar, bullshit liar, bullshit liar. Oh, there's this. You only need to make it go back a little bit. In this instance, I only needed to make her go back as much for it to blur, so then when she just pops out, you don't really notice. It's like, it kind of pops like this, but then when you're actually playing it, it's kind of smooth. You don't really notice if it happens fast enough. This was hard. This is why this looks like shit. It was hard to find, like, how do I get it to warp? And I had to do, what did I end up doing? Where's the text for this? Oh, it's all the way here. Oh, can I scroll any slower? I would love to do that. Okay, so effects, I have mesh warp. So that's what I did to try to get it to like warp around the circle like this. There's probably an easier way to do that. I didn't know it. That's what I did. That's why it looks like shit. Whose top of the head is that? I don't know. Starts with a D and ends with a mend. I thought it was obvious, but no one mentioned it. I don't know, maybe they noticed and just didn't mention it. She looks cute in this. Which really juxtaposes that everything you told me were lies. You left me here to fucking die. Pardon my language. I'm quoting the law. So everything you told me. This was hard. I also discovered the motion blur, can you tell? I just pop that little thing on, it's so easy. The transition with this is like, eh. But again, I didn't need it to be that smooth because it goes by so fast you won't even notice. Like, yeah, it doesn't even matter. So, this was hard. Where's the image? At first I was gonna do like a slight pin animation with like her hand going up, but it just didn't end up looking right. So she just kind of stayed stationary. The movement's still kind of like not perfect, but it's good enough, I think. Anyway, you might notice that instead of PNGs, I have a lot of Photoshop layers in my project. You can see there on the right, on the left, sorry. Sorry. So you can see it there on the left. Instead of exporting each of these individual images, I just made sure these were all individual layers in the same Photoshop document. And then I can just drag it into After Effects and I can choose what layer that I want to draw from. So that's great. That was very handy. You cannot do the same thing in Premiere Pro, which really disappointed me, and I'm not sure why that is. So, okay. So we got this. This was hard. You left me here too. Okay, so, this whole thing is a lot of auto Bezier. Or, I didn't realize it was, Bezier. I did it in the graph. That's how I figured it out. I did this all in this graph thing. To make sure that I was getting the right amount of, like, anticipation before she fell in. Yeah. So that was that. She's like, ooh, exorcise me. There's like very subtle pin animation here. Here, POV. You're working in a POV. You're working in After Effects. Yeah. This is only in quarter quality, by the way, so it can actually run. There's very subtle pin animation on her hands and on her head. So she's like, ah! How dare you? I think the hands are a separate layer. They are. The hands are a separate layer. I think you could get away with not making it a separate layer. Or, no. They're like, the back of her is like shrinking a little bit behind her hands. So let's look at this. There's a lot of this. Effects, there's a puppet. There's like a slight Gaussian blur, so it fades in. That's for the blur in. I really like blurs with fades. I think it looks really nice. And it's also easy, so like just do that instead. So she comes in. And her body's like shrinking a little bit past. I made sure the pin stuff in the right... Like, there's a lot of pins, but you're not going to use all of them. Like, hold on. There's about 3 here. Okay, so there's one on her head, and then there's one on her body, and there's one on her waist. The one in the chest is just to make sure that the chest doesn't really doesn't move too much. Just, like, actually keep it in place. I do keyframe the chest a little bit. Okay, so they're all, like, keyframed a little bit. Okay, great. So it turns out I did do that. So then, I guess there is a benefit to making the hands a separate layer, because then, I mean, that's a separate mesh. If the hands are a separate mesh, then they don't tug at the rest of the body. Because, like, there's a slight chance that it would consider this entire picture the same mesh, so it could, like, tug at the head too because it's part of the same image. But it didn't do that. So we got puppet. There's 2 meshes because the arms are separated. So they go down a little bit. Woo. I should... Okay, I was thinking of doing like something small with like mainly pin animation with like... Yeah, so it looks like I could get away with that. I'm like, oh, I don't know how to do it. No, look at this. This looks fine. This looks fine. It's just really subtle. It looks fine. You're doing good, sweetie. By the way, let me ruin this for you. So for the sketch layer, I did multiply on her, and I forgot to do it on her hands. So you can kind of notice that. Anyway. The square. This is the... No, that's the text. And then there's the shape, which, I don't know, it was just some random thing that I wanted to do. There's some sort of blending mode on here. Right. So I wanted, originally, the original attempt was to get that what's shown inside of the letter would be the blue. So they would, like, cut through. But I couldn't figure out how to do that. I could not do it with layer settings alone. So I didn't end up doing that. Now it's just multiply so that the parts that intersect with the letters would be darker. Once again, I don't have to make her go all the way down because it cuts away just fine. It's this. Yeah, more auto bezier. This part looks okay, I guess. I don't like it that much still. But I don't know how I would fix it. I love this part. Like, I wanted originally for it to just shift from the blue to the red, but that didn't end up working. So we got hue saturation. So I just, channel range is what's timed. So this is what I did. You just basically mix it around. It's the hue tool in Photoshop, but you can keyframe it. So I just tried to start with blue, but it's not exactly right. But on its way to blue, it turned to like 4 or 5 other things, which is fine, I guess. But it turned out cool. Because then it goes like... It's a little cool, yeah. Woo! Wow! I guess I should explain the original intentions with the video. Well, I'm not going to say where it's lost, but I'm just going to say what it ended up with. So, basically, I have to be so vague, because there's no way that I'm going to ruin this for my comic. Lucy and Counter are both aware that this thing is going to happen. And Lucy, being the creator, or like the mascot, the true mascot, Counter is kind of secondary, she knows that. Counter would expect Lucy to step in to prevent this thing from happening, or to address the fact that this thing is happening, that this character is being like this, or is like, thinks like this, has these opinions, and is unhappy with this and that. But Lucy doesn't. But the facade that she has, the kind of character that she is, that she acts like, she would seem like the one that would. But for this instance, she has to turn a blind eye to it. Or she chooses to turn a blind eye to it because she doesn't want it to happen. That's how she deals with it. So, Counter is mad at this. She's like, why aren't you doing anything? So because Lucy abstains, this is Counter perceiving her as a bullshit liar. So she's mad. Lucy, like, deep down kind of knows what's up, but she feels like she can't really do anything, or she's choosing not to do anything. That's how she's trying to solve the problem, and she's trying to ignore it and think that it will go away. So, I guess for me to interpret this song, it would be Counter by Lucy's abstinence. Lucy's abstaining to Counter is a lie. It's a lie to Lucy's original character. You left me here to die. That's part of, not exactly the exact thing that I was just referencing, but something that's going to happen because of this thing. And that because Lucy's a creator, she would have an innate ability to, like, know what her creations are up to. So she would know this, and then she didn't do anything. So Counter's like, what the f-? You know, this is supposed to look like Lucy trying to, like, oh, bye! Bye-bye! Exorcise me. Basically, another part of this event is that Counter's going to do something that she feels she has to do. And it's not a great thing. And she doesn't want to do it. But, so she's looking to Lucy, the super ego of this situation, to stop her. But Lucy doesn't do anything. She's, to solve this problem, she's trying to let it run its course, almost. So by exorcise me, kind of just like, stop me from doing this bad thing. But, no. No. This, I don't want to say his hand. This, figure it out. Azim's enemy also will, like, stop this bad thing from happening. And then that would be Counter dying. Is that literal, or I don't know. So yeah, that's about the extent of it. And then the rest is just, like, Counter, like, dying. She's like, bruh. That's about the extent of my thought for this, but it kind of got lost. It kind of got a little convoluted. I could have executed it a little bit better for it to be more coherent, but this was supposed to be just a test, so I just kind of didn't sweat it. And the product still turned out okay. Like, there can be a product that you can just project a feeling. Like, this was supposed to be Counter, like, projecting this, like, her anger and her frustration. It's like, why didn't you stop me? Why didn't you prevent this thing from happening? Why didn't you try to help at all? And now bad thing happened. And Counter's mad that Lucy didn't do anything because she thought that Lucy would. She was hoping that Lucy would so that she wouldn't have to do something. But that didn't end up happening. Alright, so this was a bitch. This was a bitch. This thing. Okay, let me talk about how masks work real quick. So basically this is on an alpha mat right now, so that means it takes from the layer above it. So if I do no track mat, you can see that it's just orange. So basically what this is supposed to be is, in order for this to work, I already have all the E's typed out, but I didn't want all of it to be visible. I wanted it to extend. So the track mat, this is, by making this a track mat, it's just basically the layer above it can only appear within this. So I had to keyframe this to make it extend how I wanted it to. So when I return this to a alpha mat, the top layer, which already has all the E's written out, can only appear within this. So then once this expands and this goes to the side, it shows all the everything else. Basically. I would have written more. I would have made it go faster. I thought it would. At this point, the project was very laggy, and it was hard for me to see whether my timing for everything was correct. It's running really nicely now, surprisingly. Maybe I should have just restarted it. Like, I can watch this all the way through, surprisingly. Before it wasn't doing that. The audio was doing the slow rendering noise. So, yeah. So it was hard for me to tell at this point. I actually had to export it, upload it to a private video so that I could watch it, and then adjust the timing as I needed it. So I'm happy that the timing turned out as is. But, so yeah, that's what I had to do. It's kind of simple thing, more simple pin animation. Really simple. Well, not that simple. Well, let me show how many pins are in this just to make sure that only the drops moved and not the rest of her face. There's a lot. Alright, this is just for this one drop. But this, I have a lot of, there's this and there's a lot over here just to make sure that only the ink moved. If you didn't know, Counter bleeds and cries ink. She cries ink when she's upset. it started with just like, oh, it's edgy, and that's the point. Counter is like basically a failed alter ego, and now her and Lucy are just homies and they're fine. But I also realized that there is a bit more to it. That's also why it's staining her face. I also realized there's a bit more that could be taken from it because they're writers. So Counter is a writer, and she cries and bleeds ink. So I guess that would be a metaphor for like commitment, among other things, which I could not discuss. Alright, so yeah. There's this. Very simple, kind of like blurs out. I was hoping to fill in this empty space with a motion tile, which is supposed to like fill in this, but I guess it wasn't enough. Let me do a clip from Lucy's 2020 Rewind. A clip where I did use a motion tile and it was successful and it did do the thing it was supposed to do. Here's a clip. This is what a motion tile is. This is what a motion tile does. So I was trying to do that, but it didn't work. But it's still there. You can like kind of see it, but you can just kind of see it failing. And then the rest just like zooms and blurs, and then it goes to her eye. This part is cool. Again, I could not see my preview, so I didn't know how well the pupil was doing. So it was kind of like a leap of faith. Okay, so this was fun. Okay, so first I got a warp, and I got a warp style that's inflate. And I put this to reverse inflate. If you put inflate to the negatives, then you can kind of see it, the bend is negative. So it basically pulls the corners in and it's supposed to make it look like even, it's kind of like some weird like trick, a kind of weird thing where it's like at the same time it's getting closer to her and also it's zooming in on her, but it's also like somehow getting like farther away. You can see it warp a little. And then at the end, I made sure to like actually inflate it so it actually gave it that dimension and made it look like you're actually like getting in on that. And then there's the vignette that I increased of, and it's just like slowly and then dark because Counter's dying. And that's about it. This was really fun. Really good practice. That's what I did. I don't know if anyone's gonna help me. I think the most interesting part was probably the meeting. I love explaining this stuff. I have so much fun explaining my work. It's like, oh, yummy, so fun. So yeah, that's Exorcise Me. Let me know if this was fun. Let me know if this was fun. Should I do this again? I don't know. Yeah. This was an ergonomically correct breakdown. Thank you very much. Love you.